Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's Up with Startups. And today with me is Mark Hoppe from SkySails. He's a Vice President of Public Affairs and Business Development in a German startup that takes wind power to the skies. And wind power has a special place in my heart because that was the first time I switched over from dirty coal-fired generation to clean power, and that was in 2015. So, Mark, I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you very much for the invite, Emin. Really nice being here and talking a bit about us and SkySails and Emin Wind.
Yeah, so please, Mark, tell me, why kites? Wind power have been around for decades, and it became a commodity. It was becoming a commodity as I was entering this industry in over 10 years ago. I've seen all kind of possible and most crazy wind technologies been tried. Why did you decide to do kites?
Well, so it comes from a different industry. It all started actually when Stefan, our founder, came up with the idea when I think he was 14 years old, standing at the beach, thinking about, okay, he could fly a kite, but there was a boat not floating anywhere. And then we actually could fly the kites. Up there, there's so much more energy. Why don't we make use of this energy? And this is how he first came up with the idea to use kites to drag big commercial vessels, and also made this onto industrial use. But then shipping crisis hit it and everything changed, the whole market changed. And this is when we reinvented SkySails. So we took the former technology from the former business, and instead of doing vessel propulsion, we then decided to take it to actually produce power, to have a bigger impact, because what we stand for and what SkySails is founded for is actually to have the biggest impact possible towards climate change.
Cool. So you pivoted. Right? And can you just give us some impression of a timeline? When was that?
So SkySails has been the vessel propulsion system has been invented in 2001 already. It's more than 25 years now. And then in 2011, 8, first Lehman Brothers crisis came, and then due to that, the shipping crisis hit it. The oil prices went down. No one wanted to invest in different propulsion systems because there was no need, because oil was that cheap, so no one wanted to invest in anything. So the whole order book crashed from 200 orders to zero overnight.
Okay.
And then in 16, SkySails group was founded. And then SkySails Power afterwards was founded as well, which is now the operational entity where we develop the wind power systems which use kites, smart kites, which are called airborne power plants. And there we make use of these high altitude winds. So this happened in 2016, and since then we have been developing some years, of course. You know that deep tech is always really complex, especially what we do, because we have so many different disciplines under one roof. And the most complex about our system is to really manage all of these disciplines to make it work. And we made that work. And this is what I think is really outstanding for us as SkySails. Also, if you compare us to the industry where we are in, we are the only ones who have already done the technology proof, which we made last year when we could actually validate our first power curve under wind power standards, so under IEC standards.
So that was,
this was,
when was that?
This was 2024.
Okay.
So 8 years after inventing SkySails Power. So it took us 8 years to get from the point from prototype to TRL 7, 8-ish, where we are right now.
Okay. That's actually doesn't surprise me a lot. I mean, it does take a lot. In hardware, it just takes ages to, get from prototype to something that can be certified.
Yeah.
Especially if it poses any kind of danger to public, and anything floats in the sky does, which always kind of amuses me when people say, we're just gonna build fusion in 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, it takes like 8 years to put a parachute into the sky, and to say it's power generation, and you want to do fusion in 5. Okay, good luck with that.
Good luck with that. You can just do that if you have done your groundwork like 20 years before that, So you've been in a laboratory for maybe 20, 30 years, and then you go out to the market and do a spin-off, then probably takes just 5 years. But otherwise, no doubt that that will happen.
Okay, so you could say that 2024 was the year when your technology was kind of certified, you vetted it. Okay, it's TRL7. We can now start going big. We can now scale up. And we met with you first in Valencia last year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we had a very nice talk there. And you said you already deploy your wind system. So it took you 8 years to get here, and then 2 years since then you've been scaling up. What before we go into some details? I mean, just tell me what, to your experience, was the hardest part since you verified your technology in 24 and up till now, these 2 years. What was the most difficult part and challenging of the last 2-year journey?
I would actually say so. The biggest challenge the last 2 years, I would definitely say, was fundraising. Definitely fundraising to get, because until that point that you have your proof of technology, it takes a lot of money in deep tech space, but then it takes at least the double amount that you have invested until then to get into the market. And to find someone to finance that at the same point where the whole finance market is crashing and changing like it is and like it did, so Trump happened, and then we also changed our legislative in Germany. In whole Europe, the mindset changed. So it's not anymore about just renewables and green tech. It's all about resilience. It's like the whole mindset has changed. Everyone is like, I think especially in Europe has a big issue with financing. There's a lot of good VCs which finance pre-seed, seed, maybe Series A. But after that, there's a big black hole where there's nothing, So and then at some point you need, and also the VC mindset has changed in some point, that it kind of works a little bit like private equity nowadays. They want to have like a business model which always is not pre-revenue. It must be possible. So you have to have revenue 2-digit millions to get money somehow, in your order book. So the whole thing has changed. So I would say that was probably the hardest one. And then also we had some issues with our regulators in Germany, which was also a lot of lobbying, fighting, and to get things done, to get permits for our first projects. So that was also a lot of challenge. And then also learning about also the learning curve we had since these 2 years going into the market, also with our customers, partners, and everyone. So we also went through a big learning curve there, because okay, first we thought maybe we can go to customer and just say, okay, well, we have a product here now. Don't you want to have it? But then, of course, no one knows it. So how do you build your whole sales approach? So first you need to educate the people. You need to educate the governments. You need to educate the customers, and all of this. So I would say there was 3 challenges: regulatory, customers, but the biggest one was probably financing.
Okay, so let's stay then on financing for a bit. I mean, the first time I heard the term first of a kind folk was about financing, and it was like, okay, there's the folk valley of death, the place where the scale ups go to die because nobody gives them money at that stage. So you've been already like 2 years there, so that means that you did get some money. You did convince someone to actually fund your way through this valley. I mean, what, in your opinion, were key characteristics of SkySails that convinced investors that, okay, when nobody's given any money, we will? I think this is one of the questions that many startups, many scale-ups, I would say, are struggling with at the moment. They go into investors, they go into impact investors, VCs, private equity, banks, anyone who would listen. In your case, what do you think tilted, the scales in your favor?
Well, I think so. At SkySails, we already have, I would say, SkySails was always financed in a different way than typical startups did. So because what we have and what made us very, very healthy until now is that we have a big basis of private investors. So we already had a financing vehicle an SPV where we pooled a lot of private investors. So we just had one spokesperson to talk to in our cap table. But due to this big network of private business angels inside of this financing vehicle, we could always, when we had to bridge a period, we could always raise some money from there to bridge through these challenging times because they were always recommitted. And of course, if you have a basis of not just one, let's say 100, 150 private investors, there's always one who can put some money into it. And of course, if you have like 10 of those every month or so, then you have a bridge for another month and you have a bridge for another month. And this is how we actually made us through really challenging times all the time. Of course, we also had times where I think was, let me say 2022, let it be 2022 or so. We had a big investor, and then we didn't actually reach our milestones in the technical development. This actually then happened to be difficult for us because that was mandatory to get the next cash injection from the investor. Then we had to kind of downsize a little because we had to reduce our cash burn and then, did a restructuring, focus technical development again, like not the commercial traction, and then build it up again 2 years later. Mm-hmm. So we downsized and then scaled up again after we have accomplished our milestones. So of course you can also do that. But now we are at a point where I would say also that we have these private investors, our cash burn rate is getting too high to get actually done by them, which actually gets us kind of struggling, and I think we're not the only ones right now who are struggling a bit, what I can see and what I hear from the market, because I also feel like the mindset also made through the politicians in Europe. Well, I think European Union and the commissioners, they have understood that we need green tech, but I think in the national states, somehow they don't kind of get it, especially not in Germany. I feel like right now, it feels like it's more about the big companies, which will, in my opinion, not solve the problem. I think we need the scale-ups, we need the startups, we need the new ideas, we need the innovators, and we should concentrate on them and also make them make use of what's there, because there's a lot of private money in Europe, especially in Germany. We just need more private partnerships. We need more public money attracting private money. I think also the clear regulatory frameworks that they also is no investment risk for them, or at least as low it can be. And this is something we need to work more on. And I can see that there's happening a lot in that space. There are coming more and more initiatives to build up new deep tech funds and so on. It is happening. So this is good. And I'm quite optimistic about the future. But the last 2 years was crazy challenging.
Okay. So, I mean, at one point in time, if I can sum this up, you convinced your investors that you need this additional technological push, and they were with you on that. They said, okay, let's forget about the revenues, whatever. Let's finalize the tech. Why did they do that? I mean, I would imagine investors. I think in my case, I was always pushed for revenue as soon as possible, and but in your case, your investors, for some reason, decided that, okay, here you go, 2 more years, no revenue, just do your thing. What convinced them? I mean, I think this is really important for people like you.
Sure.
To just understand, like, maybe it doesn't work it will not work in the other case, but why it worked in your case?
Well, I think what we always did is, so we always the trust that we gained from our investors is through that we accomplished what we always said to do. So they really trusted in what we're saying come true. Of course, building a scale up like us is not just about technology. Well, of course, in the beginning it is a lot about the technology, and of course you need the technology to get something into the market, and this is what the main part is about. But then of course you need different things as well. So at the same point that we developed the technology further, we developed also the market. We gained much interest from big industrial partners, which we then signed cooperation agreements, and this of course gave us better reputation. Then we also worked a lot on lobbying. So we came into the Renewable Energy Act. This also gained a lot of reputation, trust in the technology. And then we also came into the coalition agreement in Germany. It's not about just the technology. It's also about building trust through different kind of cooperation agreements, through regulatory frameworks, that there is really interest from every stakeholder you need to get a technology into the market, to build a market first, and you could really watch us building this path, and I think this built a trust.
Okay, but it might be, in my mind, it would be a bit difficult when you have hundreds of investors. And in your case, I wanted to get here also to the cap table, because you said that you were so successful in keeping your company funded exactly because you had those, it's not 300.
Yeah, big network. Yeah, but like a big network of private investors.
Yeah,
And yeah, we made this storytelling. It's a lot about storytelling in the end.
Do you actually get them all in one room and storytell? You said you have only
No,
one
no,
person,
no.
and that person actually keeps everybody happy.
No. So what we always had is, so our funding from SkySails was always built on different pillars. So first, of course, big pillar was always public funding. So I would definitely give the advice for every deep tech company to try to get, and also build a whole team around public funding early in the beginning. Get your public funding manager in the team, because there's a lot of public funding for deep tech nowadays, but you need someone to take care about it because it's really complex, so you need some expert for that.
This is a really nice lead-in, because while we're recording this today, I aired the first of 3 series episodes on public funding in Europe with Akur Razada. He's a specialist on that. So today is the first episode is out, and then there will be next one, and then the next one about the EU Scale Up Fund too. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, well, I would definitely say so, because
a short announcement of my other episodes.
yeah, that's good. That's good. No, but and also, of course, there's EU funding projects, but I would also recommend for everyone here in Germany, for example, look for the German national funding regimes, because they're most of the time easier to get, because there are not so many applying for it than on the EU funding programs. And yeah, there's a lot of money to get, especially when it comes to some things are just tax relevant, and so all of this you can save a lot of money and also get a lot of money. So we in the past years got 2-3 million euros public funding every year, just public funding.
Okay.
For the development. And then, of course, we had different funding projects, which even had bigger numbers. And then we had this private investor base. Then, of course, here and then there were always bigger investments going into the company as well. So until now, we were funded mostly by family offices and these private investors. And these private investors, they already invested in challenging times when we could give them, it was actually about storytelling, because what we always did is we always had a department for investor relations. So they were already, they were always informed about so we had a reporting. So they always knew where we are every month. So they were kind of part of the company. So they kind of were emotionally attached as well, And they also, all of them wanted to see this technology work. They were committed as our team, always.
Sorry to interrupt you here, just a tactical question. You said you were reporting to them every month. What form did it take? Was it like a newsletter you circulated?
Yeah, kind of a newsletter. It's like a newsletter. Yeah, so it's like a newsletter. So, no, yeah, like an email. So like achievements of last month. So kind of. And what is up next? I think most of it, and also especially in fundraising, is about communications. Especially when you don't have when you're pre-revenue, Yeah. But then of course, also since the whole market environment has changed, and also I remember last year when the German election happened, I know that many, and you can see that in the whole market, big companies in the market, in the energy business in Germany, especially the younger ones, which scaled up through the last legislative, They now downsized, they get bankruptcy. There's a lot of traction in that market. Many business models doesn't work anymore because the politician has changed some regulations and stuff like that. So beginning of last year, also the mindset from the private investors who normally invest in these business models changed. So since last year, it even got worse, and since that, yeah, it has been challenged, has been real challenge.
All right. I would love to actually stick around more for the capital stack, but we are time limited, and I do want to move to the customers and your business strategy. But just before we move, just one last question about the capital stack. So, in practical terms, you have this 100 investors, but basically on your capital stack, only one. They show up as one entity rather than multitude.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It allows you to keep your capital stack clean, right?
Yeah. This is the most important part. Like when you go fundraising, and especially at some point, it's always about the sentence, keep your cap table clean. You should not have too many different stakeholders at your cap table, especially when you want to have any decision through, It just gets crazy.
This was the conflict for me in my head. I mean, I tried to understand how you could, get all this many investors.
What you do is like when it comes to like from a Germany perspective, you just have an SPV, so a special purpose vehicle, which is the financing vehicle. And then you can have it as a KG, so you have Kommanditisten, which can be KG-Anteile. So it's like a KG it's a German thing, it's a German GmbH and Co. KG. And this is like small, like many different small pieces. Everyone is buying a small piece, so it's like a share of a cake, And then together they build this entity, and this entity is the one you talk to, and they have one spokesperson, probably the one who's invested with the biggest amount inside this SPV.
Okay.
But yeah.
Thanks for that, Mark.
And you can there's even one platform actually which is used in Europe quite a lot, which is getting more and more importance in that space, especially in early days. It's good to use. It's called Roundtable.
Okay.
Roundtable.eu. It's they come from France, and what they do is they take care about all of it. So they're setting up an SPV in Luxembourg, which is good because then also US investors can invest. And then they pool all the private investors until a funding target. They do the whole KYC and everything with the investors, get them invested, and then you just make an agreement together with Roundtable and just talk to them. And you can organize whole financing round through this. And it just costs you like, I think 1% of the amounts collected or so.
Thanks a lot. I will put definitely. I will check them out and put them in the show notes.
Yeah, do so
for people to to use it. Great.
Yeah,
thanks a lot. Okay, now over to customers. Who are your customers? What is your business model? What do you sell? So kilowatt hours. You sell kites. You sell license. Who are your customers?
Yeah. So, well, I think this is not that easy to answer actually, because as I said before, we learned a lot through the years. So we start with and we still do that. So actually the SkySails business model is the clean sales. So we do produce our systems, we do produce our wear parts, and we're selling the systems and the wear parts. And additionally, we have recurring revenues through services. So what we also do is that we help our customers in project development, for example, because as I said before, no one has done it before. So of course we need to help them. And then they pay us, for example, for services like doing site analysis, building business cases and all of this and helping to get the permit. Now we are in this phase where we are stepping towards doing actually the project development all on our own bill, which means, because in the end, and this is also what we have learned from our partner network and our angels and advisors and so many of them have done renewable energy technologies before, like many of our networks, they like build the PV industry in Germany and so. And what they always told us, and this is also where we go now, is that in the beginning, you always have to develop your first projects yourselves, build them yourself, finance them yourself, and then probably sell them to an investor or so. And this is what we aim to do now in the next step. So last year it was all about building our order book. Just in last year, I think November, we signed another, I think our biggest order so far. It's a PPA project in the Cape Worlds, which will supply power for a big hotel resort. So what will happen is that we have the SkySails power, which is the one providing the technology, but then there's another entity who's developing the project, actually getting money from the bank, developing the project until ready to build. And then you have other investors investing in the project to refinance the whole structure. So just a project development approach in the end.
So your initial idea was to be an original equipment manufacturer, also selling services to, but then you basically went all in as a power producer and
yeah, kind of. Yeah. So this is what we aim to try out now, because this is what we have learned. The whole market is actually going that way, so I think nowadays it's really hard to find customers who actually want to take the whole risk of operations. You can see it everywhere. Like everyone is just getting used to sign a PPA, so they get like a power purchase agreement, which means that they have a certain amount of power guaranteed, and if you don't deliver, you have to pay, not them. They always get what they need, and this is of course what it's really convenient, So of course they get used to this kind of structure, and then of course also if you're a scale up or deep tech scale up, you need to adapt, kind of,
But I also seen that on many projects, but for completely de-risked technologies like solar, where you have specialized companies like asset management companies, which pull investors, financial investors mostly, who just want, a 20-year investment with a guaranteed rate of return. Now, that company just pulls that money, buys out existing assets, and then runs it. They have a few people who understand how the solar farm operates and how to service it, or they contract an OEM for that. But that's what they do. So it's not, like equipment suppliers can just remain equipment suppliers. Maybe I would believe that in your case, because you come up with a new technology, a customer will want some assurances. And if you're not selling them technology, but you're selling them kilowatt hours, that's a completely different setup for the customer. Is that the case?
Yeah, especially. Yeah, it's exactly that the case. What is the case? Because like in the end, what you do is you shift the technology risk. So before, if you just do it clean sales, in the early beginnings of a technology, the whole technology risk is taken by the customer in the end, as long as you don't like gift them your system, like otherwise the whole technology risk is at the customer side. And of course, no one wants to take this in the early beginnings if no one knows what the technology is actually about. So of course, you need to take care about this issue. And what we came up with is, okay, so why don't we just have another entity who's taking care about the whole operations, shifting the technology risk to this entity. They get paid from the customer for the power they produce, and the SkySails entity is getting paid for the system and the services they get. So in the end, this whole structure is de-risking everyone in the end somehow, and this is like a win-win situation. Yeah, and
yes.
And you can also get it more or less bankable in the early beginnings, and then there's also a lot of infrastructure investment funds, project investment investors, especially in the emerging markets, which kind of search for these kind of solutions as well. And also, we do have some projects abroad where we also have municipalities who are interested in being the investors in these project SPVs then later, because they want to take care about their own energy supply.
Right. So, coming back to my original question, who are the customers? You already answered a little bit and said, okay, we have a hotel as a customer. Anyone who wants some power now, starting from your village home to AI data center, and basically order a few hundred solar panels, some inverters, cabling, and a battery on top of that. And there you go. And there you have it. And it will be delivered to you in a matter of months, even weeks in some cases. You install them, that's it. It's operational. So how do you differentiate?
So, and this is like, yeah. So as we look at our technology, so nowadays, maybe looking on that from this perspective that we like also with the technology which we have now. So for now, we have a 200 kilowatt system, which is containerized. It's meant to go into this space where normally you use diesel generators on islands, remote areas, where you nowadays already can compete because there are some spaces where PV doesn't work that good. You don't have the space, stuff like that. And this is where you take our technology instead, also due to the full load hours which we can produce. So the value of energy is different. And then when the technology is getting further, then so next step is 500 kilowatt, then 1 megawatt system. And then of course it also gets cheaper. And this is where you then also compete with other technologies which are now commodity, like wind and solar. And then of course you will have the same customers. Now you probably also have kind of the same customers in the emerging markets and like different more niche markets. But then when the technology evolves, also you get more different market segments which open up. And our vision, and this is where I think the biggest USP then will be, is especially at that point where you are in that megawatt scale, and especially when it comes floating offshore. Because when you think about our technology, so you have this containerized, so nowadays it's containerized, it's a container system. So you have this landing mast attached in the kite. And then when you go offshore, you can stuff the whole generator, the tether drum and everything in the floater. So what it would look like is in the end just a small floater which has like a crane on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would just like float around, because when you compare wind turbines with our technology, wind turbines have a big issue when it comes to the weight that they have up in the air, because this is where they have to take care about the binding moments.
Yeah.
And this is why the floater needs to be rather big, so you have a lot of steel and everything down there. And looking at our system instead, it doesn't actually matter if we go this and there, because the whole weight is anyhow in the ground. So there's nothing up there, because it's just the kite trying to drag away the whole floating thing, So
Mm-hmm.
you just need a good anchor in the end.
Okay.
So,
And I would also notice that, tell me if I'm wrong, I mean, normal wind power projects, actually, while you can put up a wind turbine in just 3 days, and you need one month for your foundation to take hold, but the biggest time you spend in wind energy is on site prospecting. You put up a mast and you just wait for 3 years. I would expect that in your case you would need to do.
yeah, well, I think this is one of the, that's actually a good question. But because I would say that this is one of the biggest USPs. Because looking at our technology, as I said, this is also why we designed it as a container. Also, next systems will be containerized. Also, the megawatt system will then be stuffed in a way that we use 2 containers, because this is exactly what is an issue in the wind industry so far. It's logistics and, of course, the whole thing you need to do around your site, the whole site requirements. And looking at our system, you can actually take the container on one truck. You can also ship it everywhere in the world, because all harbors in the world can actually take a container in a 30-feet container. We have looked it up. And then you just take the container from the ship on the truck. You just need a really small crane. And then also the foundation is just 3 concrete plates, which you can buy everywhere, and just take it with you. And then drill down the tripod, install the system, and then you can like install the system in probably 1 day and then start producing power some days after. So in the end, it's all about plug in and play,
Yeah, it really, like, in my opinion, hits the spot, because I remember my team sitting down and calculating turn radius of a truck carrying a 50-meter blade, and, interrupting the whole traffic in whole regions, or shipping a like 30-ton generator down the river and then installing it, or having all of these steelworks for foundations. Yeah, I mean, yes, this is the traditional wind energy is quite heavy and capital intensive, and you move really really big things around.
Yeah,
But yeah,
definitely.
I see that in SkySails case, you focus on this modularity.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like also our systems will get bigger, of course. So because like if you scale from 200 kilowatt system to 1.3 megawatt, then of course the kite gets bigger, the whole generator gets bigger, the tether drum gets bigger, and everything gets bigger. But in the end, we will still be much easier when it comes to logistics and installation than a typical wind turbine nowadays is, which doesn't mean so like I don't also want to build the picture that we want to disrupt like wind as we know it today. So I think it's always from our perspective, it's always we see ourselves as a complementary technology. So in the end, I think there's a big issue to solve, and that means that we just need every technology which is there and which we will invent to actually accomplish this race towards climate neutral planet.
Picking up on the containers, so you talked a lot about containers, and so that you stuff all your systems in container, you can move it. Where do you make them?
We produce them, not ourselves. So we have our suppliers, source all our parts and everything in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So all our parts are sourced in Europe, most of them even in Germany. So our A suppliers, and this also is done because of resilience, because we have seen what happened the past years when it comes to supply chains and stuff like that. And one big advantage also when you look at our system is due to that we have the weight on the ground. We don't need rare earths in our gears.
Mm-hmm.
We can also take other materials, which you can also find in Europe, which makes us even more resilient. And also that we are not dependent on supply chains, especially rare earths. All of us know where they come from, and it's not the best, not the best, not
So
the
you're not
best part in
sourcing
the world.
anything from China, not even cabling. No, no.
Yeah, probably we do. Also, when you have German suppliers, then probably they produce somewhere in Asia. So of course, we're somehow dependent on some of this, because we of course live in a globalized world. We try to actually have an eye on which our suppliers are.
But you do have an assembly facility, right? Where you
Yeah,
source everything, and then you do assembly. So the final container.
yeah, the final assembly. The
Yeah,
final
final
assembly we
assembly.
do in our production facility in Lower Saxony. So what we do is we design most of the parts. Also, for example, the tether drum and the gear and stuff like that are designed together with our suppliers. The IP is always owned by us. They often get a license for us. And then we do the final, so they deliver all these parts and we do the final assembly at our production facility. For nowadays, it's a small amount, but also looking at this is we can then build up production lines, because it's the final assembly is works a little bit like a electro truck, so you can just like run it through. And this is, I think, could also be an opportunity for the car industry in Germany, because in the end, you could maybe just make use of a node facility for car production.
Okay. Well, even having an assembly like that still need to employ quite a few people. As I understand, you about 100 people working for you at the moment.
Yeah, so
Uh,
it's like 105 FTEs, 120 employees, kind of.
mhm. Okay, so that's quite a lot. I mean, many startups, you start with a like 5, 6 people team, then you grow to like 15, then you go to 20, 30, 40, then you get your big round, and then you're actually like, bam, and you're 100 people. In not only in my experience, but in any book, like a book I'm reading now on scaling up in general, businesses, they put this threshold of like 70 people. I mean, the company, when you stop knowing everyone's name, that usually
Yeah,
happens when you reach like 70 people, and that's it.
yeah,
You don't know everybody's name anymore. Then you have to really like change the way you operate. And there's another problem that people are generally like wary of working with startups. I mean, who knows, these startups, they could go bust tomorrow. So how do you approach the people question? How you choose the right people? How you onboard them? How you motivate? I know a lot of questions, but maybe you could outline or tell me like one or two stories. Like what tools do you use for that?
May I maybe start at the point where we had this one issue when we had to step back, downsize, because I think there we changed a lot actually, because we used this momentum where we then, remember in 2022 where we had this, where we didn't accomplish our technology roadmap and then had to downsize a little. We also took this opportunity to take a little bit more groundwork on how we work, the whole processes, and also how we manage our teams. And so we actually changed the whole organization towards agile management. So we decentralized decisions, we decentralized everything around it, and then made everyone more responsible for what they work for. And this is how we got the whole team more committed on the project SkySails itself. But at the same point, we actually don't need that much, because what is really outstanding, and this is what has always been something really special, also for me at SkySails, and I've been working in different startups before. What makes SkySails so special is that everyone is following the same mission. Everyone at SkySails is working for like fighting against climate change. This
How do you
is
make
what
sure
everyone.
that people actually follow that? I mean, it's one thing, to tell people when you hire them that we combat climate change, but then to make sure that people actually have it in their heart, when they go to work every day, rather than I have to go, I have to pay the bills. They are very conveniently located. It's like only 10 minutes drive for me. I can then go pick up my kids, but I'm just doing it for the money. But how you say that in your company, people actually care. How you do that? How you keep them engaged?
So how do we keep them engaged? It's a really good question. So again, it's a lot about let them be part of the vision. So actually the fluctuation at our company is like kind of zero, I would say. So everyone who starts working at SkySails, they just stay.
That's really
Like
cool.
I've been working there for 7 years, and I thought I will never work more than 5 years at one company. So, um,
Well, that's a long time.
yeah. And this is and we even have some people which are still here since the really early beginnings of SkySails, which have been working with SkySails or the former company for more than 20 years now. And this is something really outstanding. And this also makes SkySails special when it comes to how we mix our teams. So there are many, so we mix our teams also, they're not just really young, driven ones. They're also the more experienced ones. We also take care about that they see themselves seen, So it's a lot about this whole keeping the culture as you still were 20 people. And how do you do that? So it's a lot about, again, communication. So we do every year, we do a kite camp. That's how we call it during summer. So we invite whole the team to Fehmarn, so this island in the Baltic Sea. And then we then we rent the whole camping space. And then, of course, we have a lot of kite instructors in our team, and then they do kite sessions, and everyone can teach themselves how to kite surf. So this is one thing. So there's a lot about community events in our company. Then like every week there's some gathering because one team is celebrating a new milestone in their team. So they're inviting the whole company to their office space to like drink some beer or so, So it's a lot about celebrating everyone's milestones, accomplishments, like a good momentum. Then what is really important in our company is failing is good, Open door policy. There are no failures. They're just learnings, So we are a company who always want to learn, and everyone is committed to learn more every day. And yeah. So this is like really, really important.
Do you have any kind of tool, maybe like a sheet or a placard, like hanging on everybody's wall, and there's like a big mission, and then it's like this is my like next 2 weeks things I have to do to come for the company, to follow this or
Yeah.
something similar.
Yeah, so of course we do that. So we work so in the end we are organized as a so-called flight level organization. And the flight levels organization, there are three flight levels. So you have a strategic flight level, which is flight level 3. Then you have a coordination flight level where you coordinate through the teams. And then it's the operational. And all of these different levels are communicating together and coming up with the goals and committing the goals together for the year, for the team. And then you break it down to smaller tasks. So in the end, you have like an initiative and then you break it down smaller. So then the end have like tickets. And then of course you have sprints. And inside the sprints, you have retros, you can have retrospectives where you come together looking back on the past 2 years, what went good, what went wrong, what can we do better?
So
And
as
what
you
are,
said, you based your system on agile principles, and you
yeah,
try to keep
yeah,
them.
definitely. We base it totally on agile and Scrum and
Interesting to
Kanban.
hear, because agile is more for like for software teams, and there are so many jokes out there on the internet of using agile for hardware. It's
It
fascinating.
actually works. It works for the whole company nowadays. So first we had this just in our research development department. Then we rolled it out on the commercial department, and then even on the operations. Now it actually, so of course, every team has a different way to use it because it needs to, of course, fit with their daily work. For example, sales, of course, they have like 80% for dailies, like meetings and calling customers and stuff like that. And then they have just 10% of the workforce, which are meant for these kind of processes. And in different teams, it's different. So it's always, and this is what agile work is about, so adapt to your environment and what you need.
Well, it's really cool. Thank you for this. I mean, yeah, I could like torture you here for more details, but
Of
we've been
course.
at it already for
Next time.
next time. But I think maybe you would be open, maybe if some of the founders would reach out and just, to learn how
Sure. Of
you
course. It's always nice to exchange, and exchange ideas. And I think this is also what I like most about my opportunity. Also at SkySails, I can meet like entrepreneurs, politicians, investors, and it's always fun to exchange ideas and to learn from each other. I think this is the biggest, especially in the deep tech and like hard tech space. You need many smart minds to accomplish what you want to get.
Great. Just two final questions before we wrap up. So the first one, you said you're working like 7 years in SkySails. It's really long. I only worked 8 years at one place. If you don't count several couple of years stints in the same corporations at the different projects. But if you could go back in time, not too long, but say when you started to grow, like in 2022, maybe a bit earlier, can you name one thing that you would have done different if you had a chance? I'm not speaking only for the company, maybe at your own role.
Yeah, sure. Something I would have done different. It's crazy, but I think actually asking me that question, of course, there's always something what you can do different because everything what you do, especially when you're building such a company, is something new. No one has done it before. So you can just like do the best you can. I think I don't know if I would do something different because also the failures were about learning and getting things forward.
Okay, then
Um,
if we then rephrase it, what was then the biggest learning for you?
yeah, I think the biggest learning also through the years, looking at my personal development, is especially as one leading teams, is um, being more conscious and also being and like always like step back because I have a really strong I think mind about and also a strong view on how things should work, but maybe to like get a step back and also let them others do it their way and learn something from how they do it, you know? Don't take yourself too serious and be open for different perspectives, be open for different ways of working and learn from it.
Is
And
this this leads to my final question. Is this the thing that you would recommend, like clean tech startups that are just starting the growth phase?
I would definitely say to them, look at what others did wrong, or maybe what they did good, and try to connect with the founders, with the leadership, and try to learn from each other. I think many of us has gone through probably the same kind of, sorry, my word, shit and hard times,
We
but
can swear on this podcast.
yeah, and I think it's the easiest to actually ask the others how they did it.
That's the whole reason for this podcast.
Yeah, of course,
Is
and this is why I
to
like to be here. It's like I think this is actually a really great idea to come up with this kind of podcast, because in the end we don't have to do all the same failures, but we can learn from each other, and then because we all have kind of the same vision, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, we it may seem that people work in different industries. You could work at carbon capture or hydrogen or wind power or I don't know, renewable materials, but being hardware, we do run in many of the same problems.
Yeah,
Starting funding,
definitely.
onto your business model pivots and your customers, getting people on board and keeping them engaged, and so yeah, I do believe that this kind of conversations are really important, and I urge everyone who would listen or watch this episodes reach out to Mark.
Sure,
Where are you
so.
based, by the way?
So I live in Berlin. Our company's so our main office is in Hamburg. We have a production at Lower Saxony, a research development site in northern Germany, and one in Mauritius.
Cool. So if you're in Berlin, give
Let me
Mark
know.
a shout. Have a beer and exchange your war stories. And I'm sure Mark has a lot more to tell about scaling up than we could discuss here.
Probably, maybe, I don't know.
I know, I know, because I had many more questions, but then okay, we just stick to the core for now. But thank you very
Yeah.
much, Mark. Thank you. I really
Thank you,
enjoyed
Emin.
the conversation. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
And
looking forward to see you soon again, and have a beer in the chat towards new perspectives, and also what you it's always fun to talk to you.
thank you very much, Mark. And thanks for all your insights. And good luck to SkySails.
Thank you very much, Emin. See you.
Thank
Bye
See you.
bye.